people, somebody brought this to the show the other night. I've been using it the last few nights. It explains my neighborhood. And basically, this is my house where I live with my grandparents and my mom and dad and my sister. And then there was a field, and there was a Catholic church, a nun's convent, and a rectory, priest's rectory. This church, obviously this scale is off here, if you look closely. But this is actually how big it felt emotionally. So it's correct in that sense. Then if you walked up the street past the big car that doesn't go in reverse, that's that right there. You came to one of my aunt's house where there were an aunt and several cousins. Then you came next to my Aunt Jane's and my Uncle Pat's house, in which I had three big male cousins. Glenn, who is here tonight, so I didn't want to tell you, guys always scared me when I was little. But, and then there was my great-grandmother's house, another house up the street from that. So we had we had 4 houses on the street. Then across the street was the Irish side of the family. And then across the street was the Italian side of the family, and it was the lone Italian outpost, Fort Zarilli. And for some reason, I don't remember these folks coming across the street to these folks, or these folks going across the street to those folks ever. And it was like, I don't know, people don't live like that anymore, but it was the church in the middle and surrounded by all my relatives. And I was kind of raised by the Irish side of my family at that time. And I was telling the folks last night, they were strange, but I mean nice, but a little superstitious. And that, and Glenn, I don't know if you had this experience, but Aunt Jane, when it thundered and lightning, we all used to gather in the living room. My grandmother would run me up the street, and I would gather with all the old ladies in the living room. I was about 6 years old, and they would pull the shades down, assuming that lightning can't pass through shade material, of course. And they would tell horror stories, about lightning bolts, jumping out of a closet when you opened it up, or coming in and striking the television set. Or there was a good one that, it struck a tree and went down into the sewer pipes and ran along the sewer system, up through a crack in the concrete and struck Mr. Smith in his ass while he was walking his dog. And then when it really got bad, Aunt Jean would bring out a little bottle of holy water and throw it over all of us to get us through the worst part of the storm. So, at any rate, I thought that was going on all over town, and it's just completely fucked me up for years, So, however, we go on. But anyway, I was surrounded. There was this big family and the church, and later on, as I began to write, of course, my songs were filled with Catholic imagery, which was filled with a lot of beauty and poetry and darkness and terror. And so I was writing a song about parents and children, and my mind wandered to wondering what it was like. It was to imagining Jesus just as Mary's son. Once I had my own kids, you realize you're tied to their destiny, which is both exhilarating and terrifying. And you're along for the ride. So this was a song I wrote called "Jesus Was an Only Son." I'm going to do this for my cousin Glenn tonight. As I walked up Calvary Hill, His Mother Mary walking beside him in the path where his blood spilled. Jesus was an only son in the hills of Nazareth, as he lay reading the Psalms of David at his mother's feet. And the first thing that strikes you when you have your kids is how you want to protect them and keep them safe. And the second thing is you realize that you really can. Mother, pray, sleep tight, my child, sleep well, for I'll be at your side. No shadow, no darkness, no tolling bell shall pierce your dreams this night. Now, if you figure that the choices we make are given weight by the things that we sacrifice for them, I always figured Jesus had to be thinking about the part of life he was gonna lose, and that it was really beautiful in Galilee this time of year. That there was this little bar down there across from the beach that needed a manager. Could save the preaching for the weekends. Like Mary Magdalene could tend bar, and they could have a bunch of kids and get to see the sun fall on their face and the air fill their lungs, and get to see the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. In the garden at Gethsemane, he prayed for the life he'd never lived. He beseeched his heavenly Father to remove the cup of death from his lips. Now there's a loss that can never be replaced, a destination that can never be reached, a light you'll never find in another space, a sea whose distance cannot be reached. Well, Jesus kissed his mother's hands and whispered, "Mother, still your tears. For remember, the soul